So what are these sessions? These sessions are in preparation for the World Youth and Cadets Championship. This means around the time of when the World Youth and Cadets will be happening, a specific section will be present about chess solving championships. And many have already started to take part in it and have registered. And we hope that you will also be wanting to do so after these sessions. We will be preparing about how you can approach them, the problems present in the next 5 sessions. And in this session, we'll be looking at some more general things about what is expected of you to be there and how you're supposed to write the notation and some perhaps basic problems that will be there. So let's quickly start with one problem. This is what you should not expect. This is a Mason 2, quite an easy one, I would say. So just put it in the chat, your solutions. I'll give you perhaps 1 minute or so. Okay, perfect. I think now people are able to answer. And yes, indeed, very much how everyone has done it. Indeed, the answer is queen into c8, after which bishop into c8 or knight into c8 is followed by a rook f8 checkmate. Well done. And these are the type of perhaps like tactics which come in actual chess problems and chess boards, in actual playing chess. But in chess solving, it's a little more complex because this is a maiden two with a check or a capture, which is somewhat easy, very regular, and normally in chess solving there are a lot of surprises. So let's go. First of all, I would like to cover some of the questions which you had asked. And over the course of 5 sessions, we'll be doing this simultaneously so that all your queries are answered. First of all, some had asked, who solves what if we can't find the solution after a long thought? Well, I think the aim of all of these problems is to solve it, try to solve it quickly. But if you're not able to, just move on because you will get these points in other problems as well. And like we will discuss later in different problems, how you can approach these. In the next 4 sessions, for instance, how can you approach maiden twos, maiden threes, maiden fours, and end games? Uh, and all the other questions we'll answer at the end once we've actually gone through the schedule for today and the agenda. So some of important guidelines. So I think first things first, many of you will be confused about what exactly is this going to be about. And so there are a few important links which I would like to show, specifically about chess solving. This is the FIDE article which was published about FIDE solving championships, free online lessons for anyone. And specifically, there are championships happening in Italy and Brazil about World Youth Solving Championships for solving specifically, not for playing chess, but for actually solving the problems. So let's, for instance, look at what's happening in Brazil. It's the Youth Chess Solving Championships of under 14, under 16, and under 18. You will be given 8 problems, that is 3 mate in twos, 2 mate in threes, 1 mate in four, and 2 studies, and a total time of 90 minutes to solve everything. Of course, you might think that this will be too difficult, right? Well, the aim of these sessions is to equip you with knowledge and understanding so you can approach these problems easily. Specifically, you'll be given 90 minutes for solving, and the aim of the game is, of course, to try to solve it as quick as possible, but at the same time, try to gather the maximum number of points. Looking at the point system, so for each problem, there will be 5 points allotted. So altogether, there are 8 problems, right? So altogether, 40 points. And it's a pro rata basis. So in some time, in 5-10 minutes, we will share you how these point system are allocated while solving these problems. So just bear with me while I go through this quickly. And the tiebreaker here, so let's say, there are 2 people who have solved all 40 points, all correctly, they get everything. So what will the tiebreaker be? That's where time comes into play. So whoever is the fastest will get first prize, and whoever's second fastest, second prize, and so on. And so it's important to keep accuracy, but precision and quickness as well. Finally, in this session, we also want to discuss about how you're supposed to write notation. And let's do that in just a minute. But If you can see this image down below, it shows the category and the round number. You'd have to put your name here, so whatever your name is, your country, where you're from, and this points and time is not needed for you right now. This is for the examiner who will be checking. And this is where king, queen, rook, bishop, knight. And so you can use the notation which you prefer. Let's say instead of Q for queen, you prefer D. You can write D down below here so that the examiners know that they're looking for a D when you're a queen. Okay, enough of that blabber. Let's go on with how you're supposed to write the solutions down. First of all, in mates and twos, you're supposed to only write the first move. That is the key move of the position that results in mate next move. So only the first move. So look at this problem and tell me what you should write as the solution. It's a mate in two. Correct, yes. I can see some G8 queens. Try to figure out why that's bad. Yes, pretty much. I think everyone's got the hang of it. You're supposed to write 1 dot G8 rook. You don't need to write the whole variation. You won't get any extra points for that. But just writing the first move should be fine. G8 rook. And to those who are wondering why G8 queen does not work, guess what? It is stalemate. Okay, let's look at another problem, a slightly harder one. Another mate in two. What are you supposed to write? To those who are raising their hands, we would like to answer any questions at the end. So if you have any questions you would like, just put them in the chat so that put them in the Q&A so that we can answer them. Yes, indeed, simple enough. Everyone's getting it. No, it's not King E1, not anything else. It's simply Rook HG7, and perhaps I can show it on the board to you so that you can understand it better. Here, King E1 would of course not work because there is Knight F7, after which no matter what you play, for instance, Rook H8, Knight into H8 is there, or if you play something like Rook A8, then King can just simply move to the 7th rank because this Rook is blocked. That's why you play Rook HG7. Now, if there's anything like Knight F7, you have Rook G8 checkmate. Simple enough. So as a solution, you simply just have to write 1 dot Rook to H7 checkmate. Rook HG7, sorry. Nothing else. But you can't just write Rook G7 because both rooks can come there. So the examiner won't know what do you mean. Okay, next problem. A slightly harder one than before. Mate in two. I can see some notation errors already, which is nice because it's better to make the mistakes now than later. I'll give you 30 more seconds, perhaps. Okay. Okay, I think people have started to get it, so well done. I'll just put it up on the board, and this time you'll be able to see the full board. Here, some people had said Queen H1, which I'm not sure if it's a notation error or you meant to say Queen A1, but Queen H1 does not work because of a simple move like G5, after which Queen A8 checkmate is not checkmate because Bishop G8. And of course, if there was no G5, then King G8, Queen A would be mate. But sadly, G5, and this is not a mate. So the correct move is actually Queen to A1. It's important that you look at some of these discovered checks and discovered attacks because these are some of the surprise elements that are present in many problems. So indeed, it is Queen A1, after which whatever you play, let's say Bishop G8, you have King into G6. King G8, you have Queen A8. And if you play G5, you have King F7 mate. And so, bingo, that's correct. And in this mate in two, you only have to write the first move. You don't have to write all the variations down, just the first move. And that will be enough to give you 5 points. Okay. Last mate in two, then we'll move on to mate in threes. So try to solve this slightly harder than before. good going, everyone. I can see some wrong answers here and there, but most of you seem to have gotten it. Okay, now for the answer. Indeed, it says rook to b4. Here, you don't have to write long variations. And the interesting part is that there are many tries. So what tries mean is that they're almost like the solution, but they miss out by just one move. So for instance, queen b4, it looks like a solution, right? Because you're covering up of almost all the squares of the black king. But no, because king a7 is present, after which there is no checkmate. Perhaps I'll play it out on the board so that it's easier to understand. Here, if you play something like queen to b4, king a7 is present. If you play something like queen to g7, king b8, the problem is you're blocking this rook, so that rook g8 is not checkmate anymore because it can't go there. Similarly, queen b4, rook a4 would have been the ideal move, but you can't do that. So instead, the right move is indeed rook b4, blocks these two squares, now after which king a7 is the only move and queen a1 checkmate. Okay, I think many of you will be thinking that it's super easy, right? So let's go back to how you write solutions, and let's go to a harder one, mates in threes. Now for mate in threes, you write the correct first move, as you do with everything, followed by the threats which it poses. And now if you don't understand what a threat is, I'll explain it. Just give me a few moments. Or you write a ZZ or Zugzwang if there is no any threat. And then for each black defense for that threat, you write white's next move. And after which there would be checkmate a move later. If you didn't understand that, no worries. I will show it to you with the first mate in three problem we have. Try to solve it. I'll give you a few more, 2-3 minutes to solve it. This one is comparatively harder, as most mate in threes tend to be. And so I think in the next few sessions, what we will be doing is trying to figure out how we can solve this efficiently and quickly. Okay, one more minute. I think some people have started to get the right answers, but the chess notation is a bit odd. So I'll show you how to do it. Okay, let's start. I think many got the right answer, but some were a bit off as well. So indeed, the correct answer is queen to g2. And Marjan, do you have anything to say?
Yes, Anirudh. I wanted to comment wrong answers. I believe they are much more important because many wrong answers here. See.
Yeah.
So let's see what different participants tried. For instance, one typical and quite promising move, queen g4. Let's go back to mate in 3.
Oh, yeah.
No, this mate 3. Very promising move, queen g4. And this is correct logic. Queen g4 with the threat knight h5. This is very correct. But now black has good defense, and this defense is f5, attacking queen immediately. And white has no time to play queen h5. So this is the main reason why this move doesn't work, queen g4. Next, we have similar idea with white playing knight h5. Also some participants played. Now we have the similar idea, and let's see the situation. You can think that now f5 is good enough for black, but there is queen b7 after f5, queen b7, and there is mate on g7. So f5 wasn't good enough. Let's move back queen to a4, queen a4 and pawn to f7, Anirudh.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so after this move, black could play king g8, king to g8. And now after queen g4, black kings runs away to f8. So this is why this good try doesn't work. There are others. Some of you have tried
Sorry
Queen
to
E5.
sorry to interrupt. Okay.
Okay, let's go back to the starting position.
Yeah.
Okay, we are here. Next try was Queen E5. This is typical chess move. You attack, you give check, but this is not what chess problems usually show. It's very rare to see checking first move in chess problems because this is treated as too prosaic or too easy. And now black has simple defense like f6, and there is no time to give mate in free moves. So we could keep going to some more tries. Like, okay, let's have position back to queen to e4. Yeah. There are moves like king g5 played here. King g5 is also typical chess move. You want to get your king closer, but you don't have time for that. You have good threat like king h6 at the moment, but you really don't have time for that because black can again play something like f5. So all these combinations around knight h5 should be done in different order, in the opposite order. Let's go back to the starting position. Instead of playing queen g4 or knight h5 immediately, we go with the queen behind the knight, create a battery here, and now we are threatening knight h5. And this is important move to count down, to write down, to get points. Threat is always taking some points in the solution. So now we have threat knight h5. But what can black do against such threat? Take a look now. You don't need to write down all the moves that don't defend against the threat, like e4, f6, f5. They don't defend against the main threat. You have to write down really the main defenses like king g8 or king g7, because after king g8, knight h5 doesn't work, king goes to f8 and runs to e7. So now we have a new variation. After king g8, instead of knight h5, we play with knight so that king couldn't go to e7, knight f5 check. And that's one variation. Another variation is, yes, another variation is like king goes to g7 instead of g8 in the first move. And this has to be written down. Now again, the same white move, but anyway, you have to write it down, knight f5. And now we have a surprising mate after king f6, queen g5. So now you can see the role of black pawns on e5 and e6. And you should always have in mind that in chess composition, only necessary pieces are on the board. So if you see some suspicious black pieces, you may count on them that they will be used at some moment. So this is basically what you write about solution of this problem. First move, then threat, and then defenses. Maybe, Anirudh, you can show how it looks written down. It's very important to see once again. Okay, so we have here queen g2. You have threat in the brackets, and don't forget that you can write this threat differently. You can write just a line or this symbol for any, yes, and then the next white move. And then you have only defenses against the threat, two defenses leading to the same variation. And here you get the whole 5 points for all of it.
Yeah, so it is important that the threat should be present. The threat basically means that after the first white move, what can white play again to mate in 3? So after queen g2, what is white threatening to do so that there can be a mate in 3? Well, white is threatening, so if black plays a null move, white will play knight h5. And then now the threat again is to play queen g7 checkmate. But we don't have to write that much. We only have to write till white's second move.
And we could also check now why after queen g2, why knight f5 doesn't work. Of course, after queen g2, knight f5 now doesn't work because black will simply capture on f5. So that's the difference between two moves.
Yeah, because this time around, the threat is knight h5 and queen g7 checkmate. And if you play knight f5, oh no, e into f5, the knight is gone. So that is not our threat. Okay, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Perhaps one more mate in 3, and then we should move to mate in 4s and endgames.
Just to warn all the participants that this mate in 3 is much more difficult, really, even than the previous one.
Yeah, I think we'll be upping the difficulty from time to time.
Yeah, and one more information, one of the participants mentioned, you should know that competitions mentioned in Brazil and Italy will be in-person competitions, not online. Just to be aware that we are talking about in-person competitions in Brazil on 4th November and Italy 21st November.
To those raising their hands, I would suggest that if you have any questions, pop them down in the Q&A.
We may even start to comment the answers. So first possible reply or answer for the first move we got was knight h3. Let's see why knight h3 doesn't work.
Yeah, sure. Let me just pop this up. This was the problem.
Okay, if you play knight h3, black may simply go out, capture king g2. Black king captures king g2, and you couldn't give mate next. Okay, so that's why this doesn't work. And then when you see one move doesn't work, you just leave it out and go to the next. Next, quite often written answers were h3, for instance. h3 is move without real threat. Okay, what would be the next move for white? There is no clear idea why to play h3. So we could go to the next attempts. Quite a few tried queen g7. Let's see what's the idea of queen g7. Queen g7. Now, how can this white pieces come to the black king? Okay, there is threat like knight d3, white knight d3. No, white knight to d3 and threatening knight f2. Okay, so there is some good idea. But black has defense against it. Black plays knight c5. And what now? If knight h3, now knight d3, and everything is protected and there is no mine. So that's why queen g7 doesn't work. I will also warn you about notation. You have to care very much about notation. For instance, here there is written queen g2. Queen g2 is impossible move. You shouldn't be losing points on such mistakes in writing solutions. Okay, next interesting move, queen d7. As you see, this is very difficult problem. This is already obvious. Queen d7 with the idea queen d1. So what can black do against such move? One thing black can do is to post knight immediately on d line, knight d6. And now what? Now the white action stopped. So that's why it doesn't work. We had also moves like queen g8 and queen g6. Let's try queen g6.
But sorry to interrupt here. Queen d7, knight d6. There is bishop to f2, after which if the knight moves, queen d1 is checkmate. However,
You're right.
queen d7, there's knight c5. So now if something like queen d1, black plays knight to d3.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anirudh. Thank you. Yes, yes. So knight goes the other way. Okay, let's see queen g6. Here we have attempt queen g6 with the threat knight e2, but knight e2 doesn't seem to be the threat. This is the problem, because after knight e2, you couldn't give mate on g3, queen will be closed, line of the queen will be closed. So you see, this is so difficult problem that we don't have any correct solution till now, at least as I see.
Yeah.
So we didn't really expect it to be solved now. Now you will see the solution.
So the correct solution is to play bishop to c5. That's a zugzwang. So whenever there's a zugzwang, the most common symbol you can put is ZZ. And that means that there is no real threat, but whatever black plays, whites will play a move which will result in a mate in 3. So perhaps we could quickly show how that works before moving on to the next problem. Here, bishop to c5. What is the threat? Well, now the threat is that there is no threat. And the point is that if you take this bishop, for instance, white plays queen to a7, almost pinning this black knight, because now once this black knight moves, queen to g1 is checkmate. Similarly, if this knight goes to any other square, let's say d6, white plays queen to d7. Again, it pins this black knight. Once this knight moves somewhere, queen to d1, just checkmate. Now you may be asking, why bishop c5? Why not any other square? Let's say bishop d4 or bishop e3. Well, the point is, now if you play knight c5, queen a7 is not going to be mates anymore because this bishop blocks its line to go to g1. So that's why bishop has to be sacrificed on c5. Okay, let's quickly look at mate in 4s now. So in mate in 4, you have to write all moves in all of the variations of full length. So that is, it consists of 4 moves, which defend against the threat, except the last move of black and the mating move. That means you write the whole variation, except for the last 2 half moves. So you only write till white's 3rd move. Let's look at a problem so that it will be easier to understand. We don't expect you to solve this, of course. The aim of these sessions is to equip you with the knowledge to solve this when we give it to you. So perhaps we give you 1 or 2 minutes just to look at the ideas and brainstorm. Since we don't have much time, we may not be able to look at all different threats and questions which you may have. So, yeah.
Let's give just 1 minute or 2, yes, just to try.
Okay, I think people are starting to get the idea of how to do it. Yeah, agreed. It is a bit too hard for 2 minutes. And so I think the aim of this session is specifically just about notation and general guidelines. So don't be disappointed if you can't solve it. We will tell you how to do these type of questions in the future sessions. Okay, perhaps Marjan, we should start again.
Yes. Okay, let's check. This time we got some correct answers, really. Not complete, maybe all complete solutions, but let's first check what is not good, like what moves are not good. Bishop e3 is very frequently played among your answers. The threat is bishop d4 and then capturing rook. But black can play move like rook a4. And now this is the problem for white to continue. Okay, so this doesn't work. Bishop c1 is also a good try, but black will not play rook a2 to be captured. Black will play rook b5. Okay, that's why we have here a very clear geometry. Only bishop to d2, as several of you already found. And now we have 2 variations. Threat is bishop c5, but you don't need to write down this threat because it's shorter than 4 moves. So such threats which are shorter than full number of moves are not needed to be written. Black has 2 moves against bishop c3 to end in 4 moves. Rook c5. And now, again, wonderful geometry. After rook c5, bishop e3. And now you have the threat that you need to write down. Be careful. This time, in order to get full points, you have to write bishop d4, no matter how obvious it looks. Because this ends in 4 moves. Bishop d4, third move, and rook e5 bishop e5, fourth move. So what you need to write is only third move, one move before the last. And what's happening now is that black couldn't guard d4 and not to be captured. Only two possibilities, rook c4 or rook d5. And in both cases, white bishop from e6 captures on c4 or on d5. And there is another perfectly matching variation, main variation, starting from the first move. This is rook a3, and again the same geometry, matching geometry, bishop c1, exactly on c1, because both squares b3 and a2 are protected from white bishop. And now again you have to write the threat, bishop b2, because it will end, the mate will be in the fourth move. And now you have these two defenses that you have to write down, no matter how easy they look or obvious. Rook takes, bishop takes, and rook b3, bishop takes, and you don't need to write fourth move. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, so I think the main aim in maiden fours in notation is to write till white's third move and write all threats, all variations which are full length. So they comprise of all four moves. If there are only three moves, no need to write that. And write everything, even if it's obvious that of course you're supposed to take the rook. Well, you still have to write that because the examiner needs to know that you know that we have to take the rook. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the end games. So how you're supposed to write solutions in endgames. You're essentially supposed to write all moves until there's a clear win or draw, depending on the stipulation of the study. And the important thing here is that these endgames will not be like simple pawn endgames where it's like pawn v pawn. They'll be a bit more complicated where you have to be very much precise on how you want to approach it. So here's a quick endgame. Again, perhaps 1 or 2 minutes. I know we're going a bit over time, but because of technical difficulties, this was the first time we were ever conducting something like that. That's why. So yeah, endgame, try to solve it 1 to 2 minutes.
Just to remind, the aim of this endgame is to make draw for white.
Yeah, white to play and make a draw. One interesting thing is that even in mate and threes and fours as well, even if you miss a variation, you won't be given 0 points. It will be pro rata. That means that it's going to be proportional. So let's say if you miss one variation, you lose perhaps 1 point or 1.25 points. And in endgame, if you only write till a certain point or you deviate from the best line, you'll only get points until that best point. So perhaps only 2 points out of 5. However, in mates and twos, which is one of the reasons why mates and twos are point scoring, and is because you only need to write one move to get all 5 points.
May I now interrupt the solving because we got many good beginnings. Let's check these good beginnings here and to tell you what points you would get for them. Several good starts, all of them starting with bishop e4. Bishop e4 check with the idea to come to f3 and to control d1. And now most of you wrote correctly king g3. And next white move, bishop f3. Sacrifice because you want king to be on the line of check, on f line. Very good. Now you already got probably 1 point. Let's see, at the end we will see how many. Okay, king captures g3, f7. Possibly another point for you. But now most of you haven't found the strongest defense for the black. So in all the replies I believe we got, the strongest defense for black is missing. What should be now the strongest defense for the black? Yeah, some of you have found it, so we can play it. Bishop d6. Bishop d6 check. Black wants the same as white, to have white king on the line of check. Okay, white has to capture on d6. d1 queen. And now we came to the final point of this endgame. There is only one more move that makes draw for white here. What's the move? Now try to think and remember the pawn queen against pawn endings.
Yeah, those ones are sometimes very complicated, as in this scenario.
For now, most of you have written wrong moves for white. And it's very surprising move and the only one that makes draw. And now we have some correct moves, but first we should see why king e7 doesn't work. King e7 doesn't work because black will not capture white pawn on c2. Black will keep giving checks until making white goes to f8, g8, and at the end, if white king goes to h8, queen captures f7, this will not be stalemate. White has to go for stalemate ending, for this famous exception of the rule of queen against pawn. So instead of king d6 to e7, after check, the only white correct move is surprisingly, paradoxically, king c7. What happens now on the board is that black has no other check except to capture the last white pawn on c2. And after that, we are getting into drawing endgame king d7, and we are already in the draw zone. At the end, white king will go on h8, and this will end with stalemate. Okay, we can play these moves, yes?
Yeah, just to play it out quickly.
Yeah, just to demonstrate.
Queen
Okay,
d6
queen
check.
g6.
And now,
And
importantly, king h8.
So you see, you need to have some chess knowledge also, for knowledge about endgames, to solve some of these endgame studies. Okay. And now let's see the points. Okay, this is the exciting part for your solving. After bishop e4, you have got already 1 point. After bishop f3, you got the second point. And many of you will be like ending there and having only 2 out of 5 points. You had to come to this bishop d6 for black, which is tricky to get third point. And then finally, for the king c7 as the most difficult move, you get last 2 points, and this is 5. Okay, Anna, that's all for me.
Yep. And so again, it's important to emphasize that the points are based on pro rata. That means they will be, this is some of the type of the photo will be something which the examiners will receive. They will have, okay, so he has written bishop e4, 1 point, bishop f3, 1 point, bishop d6, 1 point, king c7, 2 points. And this.
And just to add one thing about points, in endgames, you don't need to write threat. Don't forget, it's not the same as in the chess problem. In endgame, you just write the main line. And also, as someone posted here question, in endgame, the first move can be check, unlike other problems, which is very, really often happening. So the process goes like this. You are following the one and main line. You don't need to write threats, and you don't need to write side variations. But for you to be sure to get some points, it's always better to write even some side variation, because this side variation at the end may turn to be the main variation.
Yeah. And so in endgames, agreed, the first move can be a check, but normally in other in mate in twos, threes, four, it is very rare or even never that it's a check, because it's always something surprising. So, like for instance, we saw earlier, it could be like a discovered attack. It could be moving a queen to a square, an obscure place, which does not seem likely at first. And so, yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything about general guidelines. Hopefully, we've answered your questions as well. There are a few questions in the Q&A which we would like to answer. First of all, one has asked, how much time can we take for endgame studies? So, depending on whichever championship you're running for instance, if you're running for the under 8s, under 10s, or under 12s, then you will have around 60 minutes to solve 6 problems, I believe, and one of them will be an endgame. So there's not a set amount of time. I can perhaps pull it up. 6 problems, and you will have 60 minutes allotted for solving. So there's not a set amount of time to solve for endgames, but you have to divide it correctly so that you can solve all problems. And it is important to note that if you're not able to solve one problem, then no worries. You can pause it there, go to the next one, because it's important to get all the maximum points you can get. And so, yeah, perhaps I can just show you some important links before just signing off. So in this FIDE article, which I will just send on the chat, there are lots of important links which people should be able to see. First of all, the chess results server. So if you open the chess results server, on the heading of WFCC or WFC, you'll be able to see all of the solving championships present and going to be happening. And yeah, you can, for instance, I don't know, click on one of them and check who all are there. And once you register, your name should pop up there as well. And if you want to register for this, which we would recommend you do so, click on these links, the registration forms for Florianopolis or Montes Livano, depending on which one you're wanting to run for. If you're running for the Florianopolis one in Brazil, then you just have to put your FIDE ID, age category, where you're wanting to run, and perhaps your phone number so that they can contact you, so that we know that you are running and wanting to solve this. And if you want to see the regulations, which are there, just click on these links, under 14, under 16, under 18, and you'll be able to see them. There are some instructions about how you're supposed to write solutions and tiebreakers as well, and some illustrative examples. Here, for instance, the correct move is knight bc5. You get instantly 5 points, just one move. However, in maiden threes and maiden fours, you get it divided up. So you write the threat, okay, that's 1.25. You write the next variation, that's another, and so on and so forth, until cumulatively you get 5 points. And so, yeah, that's about it. Just, I will pop it in the chat, the link to everyone so they can see. And indeed, we will have more problems in the next sessions coming forward with maiden twos first and then maiden threes and so on. No, there are no middle game studies, but there are end games and maiden twos, threes, and fours, like we have mentioned. How do we access the links? Well, I've sent it on the chat, so you should be able to see this. Is this competition free? Marjan, perhaps you'll be able to comment on that, how people are supposed to register.
Yes, about the main championships, most of the participants who would play there, because this is the place of the chess world youth and cadet championship, they will be having chance to take part in solving too. But you have this separate form for registering for solving, as you have seen, so you can use them. I wanted to add just a couple of more points. This is the first and very experimental case of such free online solving lessons. So please forgive us for some possible mistakes, technical or other. We both hope that next time, yes, all will be working better. And also to tell you that there are many more interesting questions that you have posted that we hope to answer next time. You will also have chance to make new questions for the next time, and next time will be devoted to two movers only, with some different ideas, topics. Each genre has its complete specificity, so you will have a chance to see more problems, to try to solve them, and to understand how to solve them better. So keep sending questions, keep registering. We will be continuing. As you see, this time we planned 45 minutes, but it turned to be 1 hour because there is so much to say. And next time, yes, we hope all the techniques will work better. So I hope to see you all again on the same place and many more.
Yeah, and just as final words, in future sessions, we'll also be providing some materials where you can practice from these type of problems so that you can you can stay in touch and practice often so that you know the tips and tricks to solve these type of problems. And yeah, that's about it. I think one of the questions were mentioning about themes in these problems. So yeah, in future sessions, we'll also be covering some of the interesting and important themes that come up very often. And we'll equip you with the knowledge to solve them. That's about it. Marjan, any final words?
No, let's see again in a bigger numbers next Saturday. It was pleasure to share all this with you. And yeah, I just hope you will like this. The point of solving chess problems is to have pleasure at the end. You have to find something beautiful at the end. If you don't enjoy solving, you will not solve well. So first condition to solve well is to really enjoy nice combinations, nice ideas. And I do hope that you will find some new pleasure in this field.
Yeah. To those who have raised up their hand, like I said, please put your questions in the Q&A so that it's easier for us to answer. For now, if there are any pressing doubts, please fill in the Google form, which we can automatically see. And I will put in the Google form as well and email everyone. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much for joining these sessions for this session. And we hope to see you next week regarding mates and twos.
Yes, bye, everybody. See you again.